data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your host, Jason Beck, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you.
What is going on?
Whoa, that was fast. You guys got to wait and let that video play out. But nonetheless, it's okay.
Skip the video.
Yeah.
Transition button.
That's all right. Yeah. That's all right. Nonetheless, good morning, everybody. That's right. It is Monday, June 23rd, and today is National Detroit Style Pizza Day. Today, you guys.
Detroit style. It's one of my favorite styles.
Yeah. Oh, I love Detroit. You know what I mean? Big fan.
I've
of
never
Detroit.
been to Detroit, but
bro, it's
I
so
love
trappy.
Detroit style pizza.
It's so trappy.
It's infamously actually the home of rosin.
Of what?
It's infamously or famously, that is where rosin was actually first made.
I don't think that's the case, but
oh, dude, trust me, I've gone
that's
down
not
this rabbit hole.
that's not true. I'd say the Egyptians were the first ones to have made rosin.
No, they did not have. They did not have a heat press.
No,
they did not have a heat press.
Bro, two stones, bro. The people, they started making rosin with the heat crimpers, bro. Stop it.
Exactly, in Detroit. I know.
No, but that's what I'm saying. No, that wasn't in Detroit. That was actually in Southern California.
Trust me.
You know,
bro,
you're on High at 9 News when we can't even get through the intro without disagreeing.
I'm just saying, trust me. I went down this rabbit hole.
You're wrong. It's okay.
I made the same argument you're making right now. I said the same things
it's okay
you're saying,
to be wrong.
and I got schooled, bro.
It's
it
okay.
Happened in Detroit first.
I don't know. But nonetheless, whatever.
Yeah, it's okay.
Speaking of which, it's also National Hydration Day. You know, great
coffee is hydration.
I have coffee here, and also another great way to hydrate is with a can of Liberal Tears, and you can go into our description and order a case to your door today. It's also National Pecan Sandies Day today, you guys.
What a pecan sandy is, but I can kind of guess.
They're like cookies.
All right.
They're like little cookies. They're like little.
How do you not know what a pecan sandy is? And it's pecan, motherfucker.
Pecan?
Yeah, they're little cookies with pecans. They're like shortbread cookies with pecans in them.
Jenny says it like she's at a rave, and you know what I'm saying, everyone's hitting the molly because she's pecan.
Well, the reason I wouldn't have heard of that is because, first of all, I don't really like pecans. Mm-hmm. Second of all, I don't like shortbread cookies. So definitely the two together, not a fan. So if I saw something like that, I avoided it.
They were like my dad's favorite cookies. So that's why I know. And I grew up with pecan trees in the yard because I'm a Georgia girl.
Jenny Beth, you're going to love what else is next today, because today is also National Pink Day today.
Oh my God, I did pink lipstick instead of red this morning. How did I know?
Oh my God.
I thought it was on Wednesdays we wear pink, and you can't sit with us, Yarrow, but I mean, whatever. We'll take pink any day. Do you not see Mean Girls, Yarrow? You have a daughter.
No.
I need you to watch it.
Being a dad did not include seeing Mean Girls. No.
Oh, it's a whole thing.
Okay.
Well, thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above and down below to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, X, Instagram, Facebook, Kick, as well as on our very own website, www.high9news.com. So welcome to everyone joining us from any one of those platforms. And we're kicking it off today with Miss Jenny Beth Dills. She's the founder of Kind Cannabis and of Justice Served, a 501c3 that helps justice-impaired individuals get their lives back on track when they have been victims of the track. That's right, it is none other than Miss Jenny Beth Dills.
Unmute. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Okay, I have a story this morning, Jason. It pisses me off. It's going to piss Yarrow off. He's going to wrinkle his forehead. He's going to get on a soapbox, and I'm going to agree with him. So, without further ado, federal courts have drawn a hard line. Cannabis companies are ineligible for the COVID-era Employee Retention Credit, or ERC. Direct in court excuse me. A U.S. District Court in Washington ruled in Solstice Holdings versus United States that Section 280E of the tax code bars marijuana businesses from claiming the refundable ERC, even though it isn't an income tax credit. Basically, we can't have any tax credits at all. So I guess fuck us, right? Judge John Chun determined that nothing in the plain text of Section 280E limits its application to income tax credits. That means cannabis operators who received aid to retain employees or who attempted to may now face audits or demands to repay those funds. Legal experts point out this ruling marks the first federal case explicitly applying 280E to the ERC, setting a precedent at least in the Ninth Circuit, though not binding nationwide. It signals increased IRS enforcement and amplifies calls for federal reform. Despite legalization efforts in many states, marijuana remains federally classified as a Schedule I substance, a status that continues to deny cannabis firms access to pandemic relief and standard deductions. Until Congress amends Section 280E or reschedules cannabis, the industry remains boxed in, state legal but federally excluded from critical support. So, cannabis companies, if you guys took an ERC credit or tried to get an ERC credit, expect a knock on the door from the IRS. This is absolutely frustrating. This is ridiculous. And once again, we are getting no parity between the cannabis industry and other industries that are deemed more legitimate by the federal government. I'm going to throw this to Yarrow first because I know he's pissed.
Well, actually, I'm not pissed, and I'm going to tell you why.
Oh, yeah?
It's not because I wake up on a Monday morning and decide that I have to disagree with Jenny on everything. It's that I also believe that separate from parity, we can't have our cake and eat it too. Meaning, if we want federal tax credits, we're going to have to pay federal taxes.
We do.
And because we are not being taxed at a federal level as an industry, we are also not able to access tax benefits in the same way that we would if we were federally legal. So do I think it's fair? No. Do I think there's some logic behind it? Yes. Do I think we could cover the issues this industry faces consistently as a result of the lack of federal legalization? Yeah, we could have like a High at 10 news and cover it for an hour a day because it continues to waterfall these, variations on a theme. And that theme is until we have some budging, some changing of federal laws, we have a lot of issues, whether it's medical research, whether it's tax credits, whether it's whatever, whether it's crossing state lines, we continue to have these issues. But I do understand the logic of going, well, it's not federally legal, so you don't get some of these federal benefits. I also think that this isn't a partisan issue. We didn't see relief under Biden. We haven't seen any relief under Trump. First time, we're probably not going to see it. The second time, and if you went to an ArcView soiree, everybody would put up their pinky finger and talk about how federal legalization was 3 to 5 years out. And people have been saying that for more than 3 to 5 years. And I think the industry needs to start really taking, Canopy Growth is doing big deals in Canada subject to federal legalization as if it's a fait accompli. And I think we really need to, as an industry, sort of take a step back and go like, have we all drank the Kool-Aid in thinking that federal legalization is right around the next corner? You've got, Shalene Title at the Parabolic Center talking about social equity and how to keep things, fair on a federal level. And it being legal on a federal level is nowhere near the horizon, even around the bend. And the big circle jerk that happened last year with the DEA and the rescheduling of the descheduling and how that went absolutely nowhere. I think we need to start thinking about what it would look like in the long haul if there isn't progress on a federal level. Because what do we know and what do we all agree about government? Really good at doing really bad, really good at not being quick, really good at complicating everything. I don't think that we're going to get any relief federally for a very long time. And I think it's time for most people to think about that in the way that they navigate this industry.
Well, so I love a good teaching moment. Yarrow, we definitely do have to file federal income tax returns on cannabis businesses. I know, I file them every year for every business I'm a part of. So we are paying federal taxes. We wouldn't be able to try and apply for federal income tax breaks or credits, or this whole Kim Rivers thing where she's like, I have the secret loophole and I have filed against 280E and fucked that up, if she wasn't filing a federal tax return on those businesses. So we are paying federal taxes. So, but should we not get the same breaks that regular businesses have? We're paying the same employee costs. We're paying salaries. We're paying employee insurances. We're paying, all of the things that you have to legally employ people in the United States. Why shouldn't we get some kind of tax relief?
Yeah, Yarrow.
To echo that. I was gonna say the same stuff that Jenny just said.
I think
we definitely pay taxes in the cannabis industry.
Right. I guess what I'm trying to say is we don't have parity with taxes federally. We don't have the 280E deductions. We don't have the same opportunity to navigate the federal tax structure,
but
the way other.
But Yarrow, this is
just credit. So you are popping up and saying you just want to disagree with me this morning, but now you're saying you do actually in turn agree with me. It's okay, Yarrow. I know you love me and I love you too, bud. You're my favorite.
It's Pink Day.
But hold on, I have a question for you, Yarrow. I have a question for you. Here's the reality. The ERC is based off of employee retention credit, and all of these cannabis businesses all pay employee taxes on all these employees, so they definitely should be eligible for it. It doesn't have anything to do with 280E. They should just be eligible for the fact that they kept people employed during COVID. Not to mention, all of these states made them essential workers.
Yeah, well, if foundationally we believe that it was designed to be fair, yes.
So the argument that they're trying to make, Jason, is that 280E covers more than just income tax credits. It covers any kind of tax credit at the federal level, which the ERC is a tax credit, right? It is a credit that they would be receiving there. So if you did receive those funds as a cannabis operator, I would be quite concerned right now. This sucks. This means like any kind of tax breaks that have happened or are henceforth going to happen for regular businesses are not applicable to us.
I hate to use this analogy with Jesse on the show, but this industry continues to be treated like the redheaded stepchild.
And I love the analogy because I actually went through everything that a redheaded stepchild stereotypically goes through. So I totally agree with what that is.
So while I may have sort of misstated what I meant as a response to Jenny initially in terms of
a good flip-flop
federal taxes, and should have been more specific around that 280E, not all taxes and not all tax obligation, I just think that we are still going to be stuck in this twilight zone for a very long time. I don't think changing the federal illegality has been a priority for either party, for the last two administrations, for the current administration. If you tell Trump, hey, are you going to make it easier for the bomb? He's thinking bunker buster, not sativa or indica. And so I don't think we're going to see much shift, and I think we're going to continue to have these problems.
Oh, I think you're going to be wrong on that one, buddy, but nonetheless, it's going to be okay. Hey, one. But well, this was fun.
I also don't have much hope for that. I mean, there's been a lot of rumors. There's been a lot of it just keeps being
premature exuberance.
Yeah, and that I've been hearing the same story for 15 years, so, and we all have. So, I mean, is it going to happen this year? Is it going to happen next year when we're hearing the same story we've been hearing for 15 years, that federal legalization is right around the corner, safe banking's right around the corner. They're definitely going to vote on it. It's definitely a priority. Yeah. No, it's not.
And Brian Dombrowski in the chat, he says, isn't everyone tired of being treated like Al Capone? Hop on the hemp train, folks. And yes, you could hop on the hemp train because you would then be eligible for ERC credits under your hemp business.
Well, this is a beautiful conversation because it leads into the article that Jason's going to cover today.
You see what I did there?
As well as the article that I'm going to cover today, where we are going to talk about hemp and we are going to talk about the signals this administration is sending through the court system about its genuine position on cannabis. And I think when we cover that article later in the show, we'll see that there's zero chance the Trump administration is going to do anything to deschedule or reschedule cannabis. And if we just look at what they're doing instead of what people are hoping, I think it's pretty clear.
I think you need a little optimism in your glass.
We can sit there and fight about it.
Yep, that's right. That's right. We can disagree back and forth, and you know what I'm saying? All of that goodness. And on that, we are going to roll into our first commercial. We will be right back.
Oh man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, I left one, you know? But I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade, and in a GMP certified facility. So you know you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where I'm even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Tested. It's not a name, it's a promise.
Yes, and we are back, you guys. We are back.
Oh yeah, coming up next, I hope a seagull shits on his head as he sits in front of the beautiful Huntington Beach Pier.
Rude.
The highest Republican and the High at 9 head honcho, Jason Beck.
Wow. Thank you so much, Jenny Beth.
You're
well,
welcome,
I can
buddy.
tell you, you know, speaking of seagulls and getting shitted on, you know who got shitted on last night? Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. That's right. Because a Texas THC ban was thrown out because Governor Greg Abbott, he did the right thing and he vetoed a bill that was going to outlaw the $8 billion industry, you guys. That's right. Governor Greg Abbott, a Republican, has stayed quiet on most of his 10 years in office on the issue of medical or adult use THC. And Texas Governor Greg Abbott struck down a proposed statewide ban on gummies, vapes, and other consumables containing THC just before midnight on Sunday. In a vague late-night post on social media, Abbott alluded to the likelihood of a special session, but did not specify when or what bills would be on the call. And he did not immediately release a statement regarding his decision on the THC ban. Abbott, a Republican... Oh wow! Look at this. That repeated itself for some reason. Weird. Oh well. But Abbott's long-anticipated veto of Senate Bill 3, championed by the Republican Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and law enforcement across Texas, saved an $8 billion industry with 55,000 employees from being wiped out in 6 months. The decision closes out months of increasingly heated debate and speculation over whether Abbott would let the Texas ban THC and whether the industry should be regulated instead of wiped out, and if the genie that was let out of the bottle in 2019 Farm Bill could be forced back in with total prohibition. It triggered an instant backlash from Patrick, who pointed out in a statement on X that Abbott has stayed totally silent throughout the session on the bill. In an additional quote, his late-night veto on the issue, supported by 105 of 108 Republicans in the legislature, strongly backed by law enforcement and many in the medical and education communities, and the families who have seen their loved ones' lives destroyed by these very dangerous drugs, leaves them feeling abandoned, Patrick said. I feel especially bad for those who testified and poured their hearts out on their tragic losses. He promised to have much more to say at a news conference planned for today, Monday, in Austin. And his veto still raises the questions of what's next for the 8,500 retailers who have sold the hemp-based products in vape shops, gas stations, coffee shops, and brew pubs since they became legal 5 years ago. Raids on legal vape shops continue, with police confiscating inventory they allege contains more THC than the law allows, and customers continue to be at risk for felony charges if they buy a product that is too high in THC unwittingly, or police erroneously think their legal hemp product is illegal. The stores must do their own self-policing with no laws against selling near schools or to minors or marketing to young people. I mean, that's just common sense. None of these places are doing that. And unless the lawmakers are called back in for a special session,
One question here. YouTube should still be live. Back up. Yeah, we're back up.
Oh, and we are back, you guys. Okay, all right. Sorry, guys. Sorry about that. A little technical difficulty. My bad. But nonetheless, the ban would have criminalized possession, sale, and manufacturing of consumable THC products. The proposal was considered one of the strongest in the nation and was similar to legislation vetoed by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, a Republican, a year ago. Supporters of the ban say THC should be legal in Texas when administered through health professionals for those with medical needs who qualify through the state's narrow medical marijuana program known as the Texas Compassionate Use Program. And I do want to note that Governor Abbott did sign a bill expanding the teacup program in Texas as well. So we'll see what happens with that. And they accuse retailers of carrying products that are often illegally high in THC and selling to minors. And they included parents who told lawmakers their children suffered psychosis after consuming synthetic THC products. Police detailed how hard it is to enforce regulations on legal THC, and social conservatives said access to intoxicants should be banned, while some doctors said THC shouldn't be easily accessed. Opponents say prohibition would be a disappointing overreach that defies Texas pro-business values and stops residents from accessing life-changing products. And veterans in particular come out vehemently against the ban, insisting that the state's recently expanded medical marijuana program doesn't offer enough options and is not as affordable as hemp-based THC and doesn't allow enough of them to qualify for the treatment. But they call this the 2019 loophole, which I say isn't a loophole. It's a big hole, and it's made for us to slide right in, because hemp and marijuana plants are varieties of cannabis, and in Texas, products containing THC from marijuana are illegal except for the medical program. And most THC products derived from hemp plants, however, are legal because of a 2019 state law that allows farming and commercialization of hemp with trace amounts of THC. Because the law was written for farmers and not retailers, it did not offer the restrictions present in other states. Consumable hemp programs, including strict third-party testing requirements and age limits on purchases. The 2019 legislation limited the amount of Delta-9 THC in hemp plants and products to no more than 0.3% by weight, but did not place limits for any other hemp derivatives. The law removed hemp from the state's Controlled Substances Act, effectively legalizing all of its derivatives without potency limits on most of them. And in 2023, some lawmakers attempted to ban intoxicating hemp-based products, but were unsuccessful. But there's an alternative, because Abbott could still call lawmakers back for a special session later in the year to deal with the industry. One idea that gained some traction in the House during a session would save the state's consumable hemp market from a total ban while reducing it to edibles and non-synthetic smokable low-dose flower buds made with hemp grown only in Texas, and the market that was initially supposed to benefit from the 2019 Farm Bill. But counties could opt out and elect to go entirely dry with no hemp sales through elections similar to those allowed for alcohol sales under the proposal, and the entire hemp program would be removed from state health officials' purview and placed under the direction of the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission. A version of that plan still would have wiped out half of the value of products on the market today, but it stopped short of killing the industry altogether, you guys. Well, Big Texas, Big Hemp is still alive, and Governor Greg Abbott, great job. I'm very proud of you for vetoing this bill. I know there was a lot of opposition trying to swing your hand to sign in another way, and we are so happy that you chose freedom and liberty and the right for people to be able to choose what they want to consume, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this. Weed for the people.
Go Texas.
Go Texas. Yeah. Hook 'em, right, Jesse?
I mean, this is a big deal. Texas is a huge market, and it was fixing to be a shakeup if he went the other way. There's going to be a lot of angry people and a lot of lost money, and a big change in the industry. But this keeps everything wide open. It seems so pretty good. I know we've got many people in the audience who are cheering, so congratulations.
Yes. Most definitely.
Well, yes, but, and here's my yes,
oh
but.
boy, here we go.
First of all, the fact that this got so far has still sent shockwaves of uncertainty through the industry.
I don't know why it keeps doing all that.
Yeah, no, OBS probably just needs to be restarted again after.
Yeah, we cannot leave OBS on overnight. We have to turn it off.
I restarted it before we started the stream. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it doesn't like that. It has to be shut off.
Well, OBS is a finicky little bitch.
Yeah, it is.
Sure is.
All right, and we're back, Yarrow.
Okay, so
yes, sorry about that.
Let me restart my riff, ramble, and rant. So first of all, this is great and all that. I don't think Abbott should be celebrated for doing the right thing once. Even a broken clock is correct.
Easy there.
Once in a while.
Whoa.
Abbott is not good. No bueno hombre at all.
I don't know.
And the fact that this got so far along has still sent shockwaves through this nascent industry, both for entrepreneurs and investors who are going to be worried about whether the next time it might bounce in a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
I agreed with Isaac in the chat that we need age gating and we need quality controls. That's probably it. This is again still issues that are based on the lack of updating to the Farm Bill in many respects, and the fact that we are still regulating cannabis and hemp separately instead of regulating intoxicating versus non-intoxicating cannabinoids, independent of which variety of plant they came from. And for me, I don't think Abbott had a North Star on this. I think he probably was encouraged to not kill the business, and that's great. But I don't think he understands the importance of providing a path forward versus just shutting this down. And I also don't think that, unless he's going to the White House and saying, guys, the Farm Bill really needs to be updated. We are not the only state that's dealing with it. We are not the only state that's trying to come up with a patchwork solution. Until that happens, we're going to see variations on a theme, and maybe it's not going to be in Texas. The other thing I would also say is it's not that Texas is a big market. I love to disagree, and Jesse, I'll disagree with you a little bit in the way that you'd frame that. It's that Texas is an exporter state. They are a big producer market for hemp products that are sold in many other states. And so their manufacturing base and the way in which they are an engine for hemp-derived products is also really important for many other markets across the state.
I mean,
across the country.
I would go toe to toe with you on the Greg Abbott thing, especially when it comes to plant medicine. His recent record and history of what he's doing. I think there's many things going on. First of all, Texas is a major medical technology state. They have huge campuses, huge hospitals, and some of the biggest technology development and medical industry in the country. And I think that Governor Abbott sees that and its relationship to plant medicine. And I think we have two proofs of that now, given that he just passed the ibogaine bill. And so Texas is going to be the first state in the country that funds ibogaine research and actually going to build a campus specifically dedicated to ibogaine research. And I think that goes hand in hand with him vetoing this bill and him understanding that plant medicine is a big opportunity for the medical industry, of which Texas is a huge player. So I think he's got a bigger picture than you're giving him, and he understands that better than you think he does. And that's a good thing. And I think that this is a signal for what's going to happen going down the road in Texas, that Texas is a state, as you said, that where these things can be produced and grown, and they understand that, and they also want to engage in the research, and they want to be leaders. So that's all a good sign, and I think that's going to continue.
And
I mean,
go ahead, Jenny.
I can get on board with most of that. Ibogaine, I think, is very different, right? Because there's a 0.0% chance of any recreational use or abuse of ibogaine, right? Because of the risk of heart attack and death If you told me that if I smoke a joint, I have a 50-50 shot of having an instant heart attack, probably not going to smoke that joint either, right? So I think that cannabis poses a different threat in their minds, right? Because people can use it at home, can grow it at home. It's not something like Ibogaine. I think Ibogaine is also a tremendous money-making opportunity for the state of Texas. And the fact that it's a state-sponsored facility means that they will be receiving funds from these treatments. But, I think that we have to kind of pause and say, maybe so, maybe not, pending what comes behind the veto of this bill, right? Are we going to introduce something that actually creates a real market and a real industry and real access for the patients in Texas? Or is there going to be something more restrictive, something that's, let's see, and let's wait and hold our breath and maybe gauge the understanding and their depth of opinions and how much those may have changed and grown until we see what they try to push through next.
Mm-hmm. And one thing on this Yarrow, one of the reasons that this thing got so far, and Brian alludes to it in the chat, he says the only reason that it got that far was because Dan Patrick held several bills hostage. And I think it's important to know for people that aren't in Texas how a little bit of Texas politics works, is because the lieutenant governor has an extreme amount of power in there with the bills that are put out. And bills that are Senate bills 1 through 20 are considered must pass bills. So if it has that low number, it's going to be considered a must pass bill by the Senate and by the House, because it is part of the lieutenant governor's main agenda overall. And so this bill, there needed to be a very fierce mounting of opposition in order to overcome this. And I just want to thank all the advocates that work tirelessly working on all this. Your efforts are not in vain, and you get to celebrate today, but there's still work to be done tomorrow.
When it comes to Abbott's record, I would direct our viewers to justfacts.votesmart.org to see his record. And
is that one of those USAID websites?
No, it's one of those things that actually lists a politician's track record and their voting record on a variety of policies. And so I'm not mad at this one, but I think Texas has a long way to go if it's going to be consistent in prioritizing personal freedoms, liberties, and also, there's some regressive policies in that state aside from that. And so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. It's also important to remember that their medical marijuana program is like 25 years behind.
Well, he just signed legislation expanding that, Yarrow.
Expanding it from like
I agree with it.
We've gone from a pubic hair to a tuft of hair.
Yeah, but Yarrow, he kept the free market open.
Listen, if you say that he expanded it instead of acknowledging that the expansion still puts it on the far end of progress, then you are literally regurgitating the talking points.
Because he kept the free market open for the people. What are you talking about?
He kept the free market open for hemp-derived cannabinoids.
That's for the people.
Their medical marijuana program and this notion that he expanded it, it's terrible. There's a pronounced lack of access. There's qualifying conditions that are not allowed. There is not access to brick and mortar for most patients in a way that is a functional system. And it is a tragedy and not accurate to say that there's real progress in Texas when it comes to medical marijuana. When you expand something from super small to a little bit bigger, that is not progress. So I think if we're going to really look at Texas and cannabis and hemp and patient access and not just adult use, we have to ask for and demand a lot more.
Well, Yarrow, I just did exactly what you said, and I read like the first 30 headlines of bills that he has signed and vetoed, and I don't really see any problems already. So I don't know how far you have to go back to find whatever you're referring to, or what specifically are you referring to?
You already know what Yarrow is referring to, because Yarrow only cares about one other issue besides cannabis.
No, that's not true.
I don't know. I have
rights.
no idea. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, no, listen, I mean, I think we could, again, this might be a high at 10 news extra show, but I've been following his track record for years. You went back 30. That's great. Go back all the way to 2019. Let's revisit this on the show. Abbott is not to be celebrated. He did the right thing now. We need to demand
That calls
more
for celebration.
from Texas in general when it comes to medical marijuana. And he did the right thing, but I don't know that he did the right thing for the right reason, other than the fact that this is a booming business in their state and deserves to be supported.
What did he do in 2019?
What did I just say to you?
He vetoed.
I said, go read it and we'll discuss it later.
Yep, because Yarrow's gonna go on a tangent, and it has nothing to do with
Jesse, if you're here, same time, do your research. We'll carve out 10 minutes to talk about Abbott's track record on a variety of issues.
All right,
give me two hints.
We're going to talk about in the future.
Jesse,
two things that I should be looking for.
Jesse, if you're able to come back tomorrow, we'll just have you back on tomorrow, and then you guys can back channel on this, and we'll dedicate a few minutes to this discussion. That'll give everybody the time to tune in tomorrow.
Great.
Okay, I'll look at every bill that he vetoed or signed in 2019 and try to figure this out.
I'll have Yarrow
All right. So anyways, Jason, speaking of things we're speaking about in the future, who do we got coming up next, bud?
Well, coming up next, that's right, we're moving right on into Mr. Jesse Barney. He's the founder of Barney Design Co. that helps with graphic design and helps to bring your brand to new heights. He's a brand specialist, and he also helps with all brands, not just cannabis brands. It is Mr. Jesse Barney.
Yeah. Thank you, Jason. I look forward to sparring with you over that, Yarrow. That sounds good. I am literally going to look at it too. There's like 100 bills to look through. I'll go look through all the titles and try to figure out what the problem is. But my story comes out of the Marijuana Herald this morning, and pretty interesting story on the branding front. Jones Soda Company, if you're familiar, a craft beverage company known for its premium sodas. Shout out to the green apple flavor. Very, very good. And unique consumer engagement. Today announced that it has sold its cannabis beverage business, including all related cannabis-specific assets under the Mary Jones brand, to MJ Reg Disruptors LLC, a privately held company. The transaction is part of Jones's previously announced strategy to streamline operations and focus on its core soda offerings, modern functional beverages, and emerging adult beverage category. Pursuant to the terms of a share purchase agreement dated June 19th, 2025, entered into between the company, MJ Reg, and the company's subsidiaries that hold its cannabis beverage business. As amended, all of the equity interests in the cannabis subsidiaries were sold to MJ Reg for $3 million in aggregate, consideration consisting of $489,399 in cash. That's such a weird number. Like we pulled this very specific number. Must be a percentage, some weird percentage in cash that was paid on the June 19th, 2025 closing. And they're going to make payments for the rest of it, $2,500,000+. And it's in the form of a promissory note right now with a payment schedule, $500,000 due on June 27th this month. So in 5 days, and $500,000 due on June 19th next year, $750,000 on June 19th the following year, and $750,000 on June 19th the following year. As part of the transaction, the company and MJ Reg entered into a multi-year exclusive and non-transferable trademark licensing agreement under which MJ Reg will have the right to use the Mary Jones brand name in any consumable product containing an emulsion derived from the marijuana plant with tetrahydrocannabinol in exchange for an annual licensing fee of $150,000. So there's a licensing fee on top of this purchase that's going on. So the sale of this cannabis beverage business marks an important milestone in our effort to focus our resources on areas where we see the strongest long-term growth and profitability, says Scott Harvey, CEO of Jones Soda Co. I'll end it there. It goes on a little bit longer, but it sounds like Jones Soda Co. didn't see much money in the future of the cannabis beverage business and wanted to offload this to somebody who did. and has made at least made a little money back, I would assume. Maybe not the total, because I don't know how much they've invested, but they've probably invested quite a bit. So see what everybody else has to say about the cannabis beverage industry.
I don't see a whole shitload of money coming towards Jones Soda Co. in the future, because that promissory note is very, very, very long and drawn out. And I don't know if they've paid very much attention to how many of these acquisitions with very, very long payment terms actually get paid in full, as opposed to default, and then you regain your devalued asset and a whole bunch of debt. Jones, gosh, do some research next time, because I hope you get your money on June 19th every year for the foreseeable future, but I don't know, bud.
Interesting. Beverages. This is, not my favorite thing. I really don't understand it, but I do find it interesting that that Jones's Beverage Company is like, hey, we want to get out of cannabis and leave this whole thing alone. I do find that part very, very interesting because they're
good. I mean, when you're making a cannabis beverage, you have to think of other things, right? Like if I'm making a soda and I'm just drinking my favorite, let's take Diet Coke.
Yeah.
I'm not paying so much attention to what the can is made of, right? But if I'm making something where I'm putting a cannabinoid into it that can be absorbed by some of these metallic cans, right, then I might want to pay attention to how my potency can be degraded. I might want to pay attention to some other things that come into play outside of the fact that Jones makes a delicious soda product, because they do.
Yeah, Jenny's right. Soda. It's not just about taste and those formulation considerations. It's also about dealing with the, hydrophilic concerns with oil-based cannabinoids, all the emulsion technology options out there. I think they might have been able to exit this for a profit. But the thing about any beverage, whether it's cannabinoid infused or it's just regular, is that is a very resource-intensive supply chain. And so not everything is going to pop like a Smart Water and have some unicorn exit. And aside from the delays in progress payments of the promissory note, it's not crazy to think that a beverage company gets back to basics and streamlines what it's focusing on, especially if it had hired some consultants 3 to 5 years ago that told them that federal legalization was going to come in 3 to 5 years. And so if they had a business model based on changes in policy and those changes in policy didn't manifest, it probably makes sense to say, oh, gee, we're not going to be able to transport this across state lines. Or, oh, gee, we're not going to be able to use the distribution infrastructure that we use for the rest of our beverages. And that changes the calculus for us on whether we want to play this as a long game or get out.
You know what amazes me in cannabis is how many companies base their whole business plan based off of federal legalization and based off of governmental changes and whatnot. But yet none of those companies put money into actual governmental change. They have no budget line for their government affairs or anything like that, and are totally incapable of coming up with plans to on how to fix that in the government wise. I've always found that extremely interesting.
They must be Democrats and don't understand that the way you change policy is to pay government.
Well, it is the golden rule, Yarrow. The one with the gold makes the rules. That's always been the name of the game. That ain't nothing changed ever since day one over here in America.
I think that's a bipartisan effort there.
Yeah, exactly.
Not a Democrat or
I'm just trying to bait him. I agree with you, Jesse. I'm just fishing. I'm just seeing if I can get a little response.
The Democrats are just mad because USAID got defunded and now the Democratic Party doesn't have any money, and so you know what I mean.
I think it all boils down to Hunter Biden's laptop, right?
It could.
Or the back of it, or what?
Soda's thinking about.
Thinking of drugs.
I think. Look, they started this in 2022, so they're only in it 3 years so far. They already make sodas and sugary things, so expanding into the cannabis market probably wasn't a huge investment for them. They already had facilities to make things. So this is really a brand sell-off, right? They're just selling the rights to the name. It didn't say that they're transferring like assets of manufacturing.
I don't think they ever had their assets of manufacturing facilities. I think it was a white labeling deal with another manufacturer. I don't believe that they actually owned any cannabis assets.
Well, either way, they're not out anything
But if that's
physical. So then they're really, I guess I'm trying to tie to Jenny's point. They're getting $1 million in the next month. So, and the final 2 million's due over the next 3 years.
if you sell a white label brand, if you sell a white label brand that doesn't include any infrastructure and facilities for millions of dollars, including $1 million right now, I don't see that as a loss. I don't know what it costs for them to get here, but that doesn't sound like a terrible final chapter.
Well, we don't know how much. We don't know how much they paid in 280E tax.
They have to. Go ahead, Jason. Sorry.
I was just gonna say we don't know how much they actually paid in 280E taxes either. So you know what I mean. That might have been a lot.
That's exactly what Yarrow was saying, right? They probably were thinking, oh, things are going to change. We're going to have good things happen. And then what they're doing is they're writing this tax bill where they can write nothing off, and they're going, wait.
Yeah, this doesn't make sense. Exactly.
Yeah, well, it's hurting our whole company.
All right, Jones, stick to what you're good at, and better luck next time.
Speaking of that, we're going to keep up with the Joneses, and we're going to roll into our next commercial, and we're going to be right back.
After.
Yeah, man, we are back. Stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you smash that like button. I know we'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it, and YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show will be up on our website just following the show. So within the next hour after the show, all those articles will be up on our website for you to be able to view and read and everything else like that. And make sure that you go into the description of this video and check out all the sponsors that help make this show possible. Make sure you check out their websites, buy their products, and of which, make sure that you use the link to order yourself a case of Liberal Tears, 180 milligrams of caffeine in every can and 0 grams of sugar. And I promise, Yarrow, no liberals were harmed in the making of this product, you guys.
The Control Tower from Highly Educated has perfected the dab. Utilizing the concept of thin film evaporation, you can waste none of it and taste all of it. The micro texture of the SE pillar increases nucleation at elevated temperatures. And with the tower propelling at 2,600 RPMs, it's certainly the most efficient dab experience to date. The Control Tower from Highly Educated.
There we go. There we go. And we are back. And Jenny's not back, so I get to introduce Yarrow. Oh, there he is. Back. Oh, that was quick. That was quick.
I got you, Yarrow.
All right.
I got you, Yarrow.
Go for it, Jenny.
Damn. Please welcome the angriest elf on the high at 9 shelf, straight out of the Shire and into your escrow, Yarrow Kubrin, real estate professional by day, Middle Earth misfit by attitude. We pull him off the shelf, Mr. Yarrow Kubrin.
Middle Earth misfit.
Oh my God.
That's good. Yeah.
How does she find a way to let the viewers know how broken of a human I am?
Oh man, it's so good.
You didn't like that, Yarrow?
Women are good like that, Yarrow. That's what they do.
It was great. It was really great.
I mean, you do live in Sebastopol, and that is pretty much Middle Earth.
Pretty Middle Earth,
right.
Yeah.
Where the spirulina flows freely.
That's right.
Okay, good morning, High at 9 News viewers. I chose an article that is that is about a topic that's near and dear to my heart, which is cannabis and guns. And so without further ado, hot off the press, published today from Marijuana Moment, this article by Ben Adlin. Letting marijuana users have guns poses, quote, a clear danger, Trump Solicitor General tells Supreme Court. In a recent filing with the U.S. Supreme Court, the Trump-led Department of Justice is doubling down on arguments arguments made under former President Joe Biden that users of illegal drugs, including marijuana, pose a clear danger of misusing firearms. That risk, the DOJ contends, justifies the longstanding federal prohibition on gun ownership by drug consumers, known as Section 922G3, despite the Constitution's broad Second Amendment protection. In a petition for review by the High Court, U.S. Solicitor General John Sauer argues that despite recent appeals court decisions calling the constitutionality of firearm bans into question, the restriction is nevertheless lawful. Section 92GG3 complies with the Second Amendment. The government's June 2nd filing in the case says, U.S. versus Hamani, that the provisions target a category of person who poses a clear danger of misusing firearms, habitual users of unlawful drugs. Some lower courts have said the government's blanket ban on guns and ammunition possession infringes on the Second Amendment, at least as applied to certain individual cases, because there's no historical justification for such a broad restriction on an entire category of people. But in the appeals petition in Hamani, Trump's Solicitor General said the ban is necessary and narrowly tailored enough to survive the legal challenge. The federal statute bars their possession of firearms only temporarily and leaves it within the power to lift the restrictions at any time. Anyone who stops habitually using illegal drugs can resume possessing firearms. Notably, while the government mentions habitual users of illegal drugs 40 times in its filing, that word does not appear in Section 922G3. The language of the statute prohibits anyone who is an unlawful user or addicted to any controlled substance from purchasing or possessing firearms or ammunition. A reply brief from Hamani's lawyers in that case is due to the Supreme Court by July 21st. While DOJ is asking the High Court to take up the Hamani case, at least two other similar cases are waiting in the wings: U.S. versus Cooper and U.S. versus Baxter, both of which hinge on the constitutionality of that provision. In Cooper, the Eighth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals panel dismissed a 3-year prison sentence against a person convicted for possession of a firearm while being an active user of marijuana. Thank you. Judges in that case ruled that the government's prohibition on gun ownership by drug users is justified only in certain circumstances, not always. Nothing in our tradition allows disarmament simply because the defendant belongs to a category of people, drug users, that Congress has categorically deemed dangerous, their ruling said. In Baxter, the Eighth Circuit ruled that 922G3 was unconstitutionally applied to the facts in the case. Judges in that case wrote that there was insufficient factual findings in the record for this court to review Baxter's as-applied Second Amendment challenge. Nevertheless, quote,
oh, Yarrow, your sound is cutting out for a second, buddy. Yeah, Yarrow's is whatchamacallit. Yarrow's having issues. His struggle bus is working overtime. Yarrow, can you hear us? Oh man, poor Yarrow. Poor Yarrow. Hello? All right, well, that is unfortunate, Yarrow, that Yarrow is all of a sudden.
I can't hear you. You're cutting out.
Yeah, all right, there you go. Now you're back, Yarrow. Now you're back. You started cutting out. You started sounding like crazy, bro.
Yarrow said,
yeah. Oh, God, don't say that, Jenny. It's got me thinking weird things.
Oh, boy.
Oh, it's the morning show.
So, can you hear me?
Yeah, now you sound, whatever you did, you fixed it.
I didn't do anything. I just kept talking like the fool that I am.
It was Discord because it was glitching out. Jesse was frozen with his eyes closed, making a very interesting face. A lot of things happened.
Interesting.
Jesse makes interesting faces, though. That is part of his job description. So should I just summarize this and get to the bottom line?
Yeah. Come on, Yarrow.
Yeah,
because our viewers don't want to hear me glitching in and out. No. I don't even know if they want to hear me at all. Bottom line is the DOJ not just under Biden, but also under Trump, is gunning for cannabis users.
See what you did there.
Right to the Second Amendment. We already have this ridiculous lifetime ban on firearm ownership for most convicted felons. So you could get convicted at 19 for stealing from your church coffers for embezzlement, cop a felony, and at 69 years old, you'd be prevented from duck hunting in the Sacramento Delta with your grandkids. I don't see how fair that is under the Judeo-Christian construct of paying your price to society and being redeemed. But in addition, they're saying that people who haven't committed a crime by using cannabis, whether it's an illegal program or not, shouldn't have the right to have a boomstick in their domicile. The other thing that's really interesting about this is you don't see either the Biden administration or the Trump administration going after addicts that are addicted to prescription drugs or people who are addicted to alcohol. And so the language of 922 blah, 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 says controlled substances. It doesn't say cannabis, and it doesn't say that those have to be illegally acquired. And so I don't think it's a fair application of the law. And we've seen this in states like Hawaii and other states. And so people are having to be forced to choose between breaking the law or accessing cannabis or being able to access their Second Amendment rights. And this administration seems to be following the pattern of the previous administration, which is continuing to reinforce the stigma against cannabis users, not taking a principled stand, and not allowing those who use cannabis to be treated the same as those who would use Vicodin or Valium or Oxycontin or anything else that they could get from CVS or Long's Drugs.
I agree with you, Yarrow. I totally agree with you. Actually, this one time on this one, that this is a little bit of an overreach, a little bit of a stretch. I was hoping that we would see better out of our Solicitor General, but nonetheless, I guess old habits die hard, and I do want to say, I do give Marijuana Moment a lot of stuff for being kind of a left-leaning platform or whatnot, but I do think that it's good that they did include in the article that they were covering that Joe Biden argued the same thing, and so I think that was some fair coverage right there. So good job to them over there at Marijuana Moment.
Yeah, it's really disturbing, and they covered it in a fair and balanced way.
I would say this one was overall fairly that, and is like probably the first time I've ever witnessed that.
Yep.
Yeah. And speaking of stealing from the church coffers, Yarrow, we all know you can't fuck up the church's money. That's a sin. But yeah, we need to figure out some kind of equal protection. And that's why I keep saying that this argument and the cannabis argument in general is an equal protection under the Constitution of America, of the United States of America argument. And that's where these fights really need to go. It needs to go into constitutional law. So, hey, constitutional lawyers out there, maybe you should go get some cannabis money and actually fight something that could actually change the trajectory of where this industry is going and where patients' rights and where consumer rights are going. Because, you shouldn't have to decide whether you should be able to defend your family in the middle of the night or, And
there's been some good parallel chat on our YouTube here as well. What happens to the police officer in New Jersey who wants to be able to tune out and chill out for a 3-day weekend, but uses a gun in their day job? What happens to the federal park ranger who wears a sidearm when they're in Yosemite? What happens to so it's not just that citizens are having these impossible choices that they're having to make, but it's also infringing upon people who are government employees and their ability to maintain a status that allows them to be gainfully employed as well as access state legal programs. It's really, really FUBAR. It's not fair at all. We have this long overdue, this festering issue around gun reform in this country. And when most people talk about gun reform, they think that what we're talking about is limiting the Second Amendment. And just like the Farm Bill is 7 years overdue to be revisited, there is a conversation that I believe needs to happen in this country around gun reform. There are places where it's too loose. There are places where it's too tight. There are places where we could refresh our understanding of what the Second Amendment actually means. It is not a coincidence that the majority of school shootings happen with a certain demographics, with a certain type of weapon. And that, I think, needs to be addressed. And at the same time, is it fair that every felon for the rest of their life can't even have any firearm? That doesn't seem very fair either. So I think that as a nation, we really need to think about how we address and really consider what gun reform would mean and what really balances different needs. And certainly banning people because they use cannabis or even because they're drug addicts without acknowledging that alcohol, cigarettes, and prescription medication are flooding our populations doesn't seem very fair and balanced.
Well, you know, Yarrow, this is the thing is I believe that any type of infringement on American Second Amendment rights is an infringement overall. But I will say, you know, to the gun control advocates that they often overreach on a whole number of things, and they try to overcorrect on a whole number of instances. And I think probably like the best thing that I think that a majority of Americans could agree with is that if we are going to ban gun ownership for some certain Americans, I think it should all be based off of one's mental health status as opposed to what type of products that they consume overall. If you are deemed by doctors that you know what I'm saying, that you are unsafe to yourself and whatnot, then it's probably smart that you have your gun rights taken away. You know what I mean? That would just make sense. If you're one of these crazy 5150s that are out there on the streets that's a zombie or whatnot, you should probably not have a gun because you can't even control your own actions, let alone control what the actions with a firearm. And so that does create a public safety risk, in which I would totally support in that type of a level. But at the same time, too, if people are able to clean themselves up and able to demonstrate that they can go back to being a normal, positive influence in society, they should be able to get their gun rights back as well. And so we need to have that type of approach, I feel, when it comes to this.
This is all crazy to me. We shouldn't be banning anything like that. Cars are more dangerous than guns. People die from vehicular manslaughter more than they do from guns. Every person is driving a loaded weapon every time you get in behind the wheel of a car. Another thing I would touch on is that, Yarrow, you sort of like brushed on this thing when you said the thing about the school shootings. And what's interesting about that is that every single school shooter was on SSRIs of some kind, and antidepressants of some kind.
Exactly.
And those drugs are one of the side effects is violent behavior and suicidal tendencies. So
and broad strokes. Mostly under 25, mostly male, mostly white, and mostly an AR-15 with an extended mag.
Right, and on a crazy drug that makes
on
you
the drugs. The drugs is what it is. Yeah, yeah.
So if we're gonna, there's this weird concept where like, I don't know why we're talking about cannabis like anyone on cannabis has ever done anything deserving of having their guns taken away. I think we would all be very hard pressed to find someone who smoked a joint and then immediately committed a violent crime without something else being involved, like being on meth or being on alcohol as well, or some other drug, right? I don't think that there's any story where somebody's just on cannabis and cannabis alone smokes a joint and kills a bunch of people. I've never heard of that. I've never seen that. I've never seen evidence of that. And yet we have this conversation of taking people's guns because they use cannabis or because they've been in jail because they were arrested with cannabis. This is just crazy to me when we do have drugs that are peddled by the pharma companies that do make people crazy and suicidal and do make people kill other people. And every single person that's ever done that in a school shooting or otherwise mass shooting was on those drugs. Like how is that conversation never happening? And it should be happening on a bipartisan level. It should be happening on the left and the right. And these are reasonable things that we all know. But then it comes to, Jason, you said something super interesting as well, which is you would get behind if they were diagnosed with some mental issue that they could have their guns taken away. But you have problems there too, because doctors aren't perfect. They can misdiagnose.
I agree that's why I said there should be a process for them to be able to get them back for them to be able to demonstrate. But at the same time, Jesse, just to your point,
you have a problem even doing that in the first place, because if you're going to take someone's guns away because of a mental health issue, how do you know for a fact that they actually have that mental health issue?
Well,
and that the doctor didn't make
for most people, it's quite apparently obvious when you look at them. You can tell.
Again, that's a biased opinion. Like for most people, it's obvious. That's
it's fairly obvious, Jesse.
How do you have I guess maybe it can be. Sometimes it's not.
Hey, you know what? Sometimes it's not, and whatever, and those people shouldn't. But like it's fairly obvious. You know what I'm saying? 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 people, you're going to be able to identify that that person has something the matter with them. They probably shouldn't have a firearm. And just to double back on your point, Jesse, you said that all of the school shooters were all people that were on the what were SDRI drugs. SSRIs, and that's so maybe if you're taking SSRIs, then automatically you should be revoked from owning a firearm. I wouldn't be opposed to that.
That was my point. Like if we're gonna ban people who use some kind of drug from owning guns or from even being around them, it should be anyone who takes an SSRI. But again, we're walking in really weird territory where you're restricting people's rights to defend themselves because they have a mental health issue.
These people can't even take care of themselves, though, Jesse, in the first place. So how are they going to be able to defend themselves?
That's not everybody. How many people are on SSRIs in America right now? That's not a universal truth. That's my point. So we're walking in this weird ideological territory where we're making these very broad strokes, and we're saying, oh, you could take guns or restrict somebody's ability to defend themselves. I think that's nuts. I think that, this is where the libertarian in me comes out.
I hear it, bro. I'm not mad at it.
What I want is more people to have guns.
Me too.
I want everyone to have guns. To me, the solution is if every single person in your neighborhood, in your town, in everywhere has guns, then the ones who are crazy are far less likely to use them. Because if you pull out a gun and you're going to act crazy and 10 people around you pull out their guns, guess how long you're going to last?
Yep. I subscribe to that logic. I subscribe to that logic as well, Jesse. I'm totally with that. But we
don't see libertarian communities, and we don't see Republican communities, and we don't see Democrat communities suggesting that the lifetime ban for felons is ridiculous and needs to be changed. And when we hear the word gun reform, typically we hear it from people who want to limit access to guns in certain scenarios. We don't talk about revisiting some of these things that are antiquated policy.
You might be onto something there. You know what I'm saying?
I just don't think we should be talking about banning guns from anyone at all. It just doesn't make any sense.
I mean, I think
if you're going to talk about that, you might as well talk about. That's why I said the car comment.
Yeah, and if we're going to
talk about that, let's talk about banning cars and other very dangerous things that people use every day.
Shout out to Troy Lawrence, who just threw in a super chat. Thank you so much for that, Troy. We appreciate it. He says, maybe if you regulated guns like you do cannabis, we would all win. The hypocrisy and violation is real.
Yeah,
that's very well said.
Not a good move. I'm not stoked about it. I think none of us are. Nobody would be, and it doesn't matter which side of the aisle is pushing this, and both sides have pushed this, and that sucks.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Yarrow. I don't think felonies should necessarily matter. I think if you have been convicted of murdering someone or a mass murder or any type of things like that, I think then you definitely shouldn't have your rights to have a firearm. But I think that's kind of where I would draw the line on that one.
All right. Well,
on that, we're going to roll to our final commercial, and we are going to be right back.
Oh man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, my left one, you know? And I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested, every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade, and in a GMP certified facility, so you know you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where I'm even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Tested. It's not a name, it's a promise.
There we go. And we are back, you guys. And
all right, you guys, Jason Beck has transitioned and he is ready to close the show out with hopefully 2 happy stories. Are they both happy, Jason?
You know what, Jenny Beth? I couldn't find any happy stories today. The happiest story was the one that we covered at the beginning of the show. So it's kind of like Upside Down Day. You know what I mean? With the SB3. That was
I'm always the happiest part of the show.
Oh, amazing. But we've been talking about guns, Yarrow, and this brings me right into this one. I think you're going to find this interesting because a DC rapper who fired shots in Tysons Mall to remain free and requests a marijuana exemption. You guys get this. A well-known DC rapper who served time for opening fire inside the Tyson Center Mall in Northern Virginia will remain free, though he violated his probation. Noah Settles, known as No Savage, served his 3-year sentence but has a 10-year suspended sentence hanging over his head. At a court appearance in Fairfax County on Friday, his defense lawyer made an unusual request. He asked the judge to remove the condition that Settles cannot use marijuana. In a quote, that music scene and social scene Noah has grown up with is infused with marijuana use, the lawyer said, adding that Settles is successful and represented by a prominent agency. But the judge was skeptical and he says, "You're asking me to let him smoke marijuana because he's a rapper, even though he hasn't done the substance abuse treatment that was ordered?" the judge asked. Settles was instantly recognized by fans as he stepped out of the Fairfax County courthouse with his mother and 4-year-old son, and he pleaded guilty and served time for firing a gun inside the mall on Father's Day weekend of 2022. As caught on surveillance video, his gunshots directed at a group of rivals missed their target, but sparked panic among shoppers. And Settles faced the judge because he violated the terms of his probation by failing drug and alcohol tests and not complying with required substance abuse treatment. He also was found to have traveled to New York without permission and performing at a boxing match. In an interview with News 4, he defended his marijuana use as illegal, and in a quote, "The judge rules is what it is, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's legal everywhere. I don't do no other drugs," he said. The judge warned about what could happen if Settles is not required to follow probation rules, and in a quote says, "My concern is that he comes back to court with something more serious or he ends up dead," the judge says. And due to the suspended sentence, the judge could send Settles back to jail for up to 10 years, and instead Settles will remain free while his attorney and probation officer try to work on a plan. In a quote, they say, "I'm happy I ain't going to jail," Settles told News 4. "That's the biggest thing, the biggest blessing. I got my son, so that's the biggest blessing ever, not going back to jail." Settles said he will do better, and in a quote says, "I'm heading in a straight path. I'm doing way better than I ever. I feel better than ever," he said. "Just keep focusing, keep doing what I'm doing, keep driving. I got new music dropping. I'm going to get through this, and I've been through a lot, and I ain't never folded under pressure, so I'm going to get through it," he says. In the next month, Settles is required to comply with the terms of his probation, return to court, and see what plan the judge may approve going forward. And he also has a firearms charge pending in D.C., you guys. Man, I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this, especially after that lively conversation, Yarrow. This guy's busting shots in the mall, and all of a sudden is saying, "Hey, I should be able to smoke weed while I'm on probation." What do y'all got to say about this?
I mean, if it's his medicine, it's his medicine. I can't wait to hear what his fire new track is.
That was never an argument. That was never came up as a conversation, and he didn't include that in any quotes trying to say that cannabis was his medicine. They tried to say that's part of his scene.
Tat, Jason, Mr. All Use is medical use.
I do believe that, but that's not the point.
Then stop arguing with me and let me ask this man to please drop his fire new tracks. We can't wait to hear him.
Mm-hmm.
Bet they're going to be a banger.
I bet. Pow, pow, pow. I see what you did there, Jenny Beth. That was cute. What do you?
Yarrow liked it. That's all I'm looking for here.
I know.
I did. I thought that was funny. I mean, I think there's a conflation here between the fact that look, boy, it's really hard to justify discharging a firearm and right them all.
And he did do 3 years in jail. A lot
more to be able to support this person's decision process there. Sober, not sober, like the chances that you're going to hit your target versus hitting an unintended target. I just can't co-sign that just because it includes the same piece of metal that I covered in my story. That sounds really under-evolved in terms of the thought process there. So
I'm glad they didn't blame the cannabis for him shooting them all up.
That's fair. You have any thoughts on this, Jesse? Jesse, there? Did we lose muted. Jesse?
Be real. There were children present in malls. This is a whole bigger situation than just pew 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 out in the middle of an empty field. So this guy's probably going to prison anyway, and there's plenty of weed in there. There is.
It's expensive when it's like 10 soups for a joint. You know what I mean? That's a little pinhead.
I wonder. Let me shut up. 280s really hit him hard.
Soups or a blowjob.
Oh boy. Oh, easy there.
How would you pay? Never mind.
Well, that was interesting.
The soups or the stick?
Yeah. I really wonder, do you guys think that this guy should be able to smoke cannabis while he's on probation?
I don't think that he's going to have to worry about a probated sentence for a long time until he serves his actual sentence. He's on pretrial right now.
He served 3 years.
Oh, he did serve 3 years already.
He served 3 years already. He's on probation now with the possibility of going back to do 10 if he violates his probation.
So my answer is firearm charges in DC. Is that correct?
It sounds like Virginia.
My answer is super.
Go for it, Yarrow.
And my answer is yes. And I reference my own personal experience where I was sentenced to a pretty big chunk and released very, very early and was going to have years in a supervised situation in the system where not using medical cannabis was a blanket condition for compliance. And I was lucky enough to have a sophisticated criminal defense attorney, access to resources, and the ability to take a physician who was president of the International Cannabinoid Association for Medical Doctors and go back to court and reinstate my right to use medical cannabis while in that system. And the argument was that I have chronic painful gout and that I don't want to take opioids when there's a gout flare up. But I don't think many defendants have that lucky, the resources, the medical doctor, and an amazing criminal defense attorney to be able to go back and get that privilege reinstated like I was. And so I do think that we still have an opioid crisis. We still have other harmful intoxicants being used by people. And if they can qualify under whatever medical program is in their state, I think it's just the criminal justice prison industrial complex trying to find an easy, low-hanging fruit way to have people reoffend and creating a condition for probation or supervision or parole or whatever it is in their state. And I don't really think that that's fair. And I don't really think that that balances rehabilitation versus accountability. And so it would be nice if that wasn't just automatically included. If there's a state legal cannabis program and somebody's in compliance, whether it's medical or adult use, and they're, it's one thing if you got a DUI and you ran over some school kids and then you're not allowed to drink alcohol, right? That's very different.
He's not allowed to drink alcohol either.
Right. So I don't understand, why are you not allowed to drink alcohol? I mean, in my religion, you're supposed to drink alcohol on certain days, a lot of it. And so I don't understand how they get to just ban alcohol consumption or ban cannabis use. To me, it just seems like ways to create landmines for compliance for people who are caught up in the criminal justice system.
Well, probation is a trap, and we all know that. But hey, that was not a happy story, Jason. Can you do better to end it?
I'll try, but probably not. But I will tell you this: we are keeping it in Virginia.
Okay.
But Jesse, do you think he should be able to smoke weed on probation?
When you commit crime, if there's an actual, this is where what we were talking about earlier actually comes into play, right? Because you've committed a crime, therefore you probably should go through some mental health evaluations as a result of that. And if in process of that, it's found that there's some mental health issue that might complicate things, then yeah, you should be restricted, but otherwise, no.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting argument that his defense lawyer is trying to say, hey, he should be able to do it because he's involved in that world in a sense because he's a rapper. I think that's an interesting argument. I can't believe that the judge is buying it or whatnot.
I mean, I missed exactly what the crime was. Was it a violent crime?
Yeah, violent crime. He was shooting in a mall, bro.
Oh yeah,
with people there.
So there's probably definitely some mental health problems going on there.
Yeah, I
definitely was evaluated for those things, and I wouldn't allow someone like that to take any drugs.
Yeah, I don't think he should be able to consume cannabis or consume alcohol. I don't have a problem with him going to New York to perform at a boxing ring because he still has to provide for his family. I have no problem with that. But as far as I don't think he should be able to consume any type of substance. I think probably the most substance he could consume is coffee, and that'd probably be about it. But
man,
yeah,
weed, calm down.
I get that too, Jenny. But you know what? Consuming cannabis is more of a privilege because it's still a Schedule I drug. If it was descheduled, I would probably have a totally different opinion because I would view it just the same as cigarettes.
Your opinions are all over the world sometimes, buddy. How many felons do we know? How many people do we know that are on probation?
But we're talking about someone who shot up a mall.
Yeah, he opened up fire in a mall, Jenny Beth. What if you were with your son in that mall on that same day and you guys just missed a stray bullet? Would you feel the same way?
He'll be sitting in jail.
He did 3 years in jail, Jenny.
Yeah, I mean, I think this gets back. I think this gets back to my article, frankly, which is like if you were convicted for irresponsibly discharging a firearm, then maybe a lifetime ban as a result of your conviction for that behavior and not being able to access firearms for the rest of your life might make sense. Probably does make sense.
Yeah,
might.
Absolutely.
And that how we conflate access to firearms with access to cannabis still doesn't make sense. Like, okay, this guy did something really, really stupid, endangered other people, paid his price to society. Maybe he doesn't ever get to own a firearm again, but who's he going to hurt smoking a blunt?
It's just how the system works.
At least he asked if he could smoke weed instead of said, fuck it.
No, he didn't ask. He pissed hot. He pissed hot, and they're saying that that's a probation violation, Jenny Beth, and basically he's trying to say, his lawyer is trying to say we shouldn't go and lock him back up and give him a parole violation because he's a rapper and he's involved in and that's part of his lifestyle as being a rapper is smoking weed.
That's a flimsy argument.
I think so too. I can't believe the judge is taking this, especially in Virginia of all places. But nonetheless,
Yarrow, call him and tell him to say he's got gout.
No, I mean I'm pissed and hot about it, but he pissed hot, and that's very different. And he didn't go back to try to reinstate that right or litigate it preemptively, or to say that he was going to do a carve-out exemption. I mean, what's he going to do? Say that it's that's covered by his church as a sacrament, and that he's the Church of Religious Hip Hop. Like this is grasping at straws. I appreciate his lawyer's attempt, but it's
very disingenuous,
sort of like
right?
skydiving without a parachute, right?
Yeah,
like that is,
Yeah, I'm with you.
That.
Yeah,
I think you're gonna land, and it's not gonna be okay.
Man's pissed this morning, and I'm pissed off about it.
All right, well, Jenny Beth, we're going to roll into the final story because I think you're going to be pissed off about this too, since you're so all fired up. Because a Virginia firefighter's appeal over medical marijuana use is denied by a grievance panel, you guys. That's right.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
A Norfolk grievance panel upheld the firing of a firefighter over medical marijuana use, despite state law now protecting such use. A city grievance panel has denied an appeal from a former Norfolk firefighter seeking to get his job back after being fired for medical marijuana use. A 3-member panel upheld the termination of firefighter Brandon Beltane in a June 9th decision after he was fired in 2023 for medical marijuana use. Beltane has said he was unfairly targeted by the city and was protected by a drug policy the city changed after he informed them of his cannabis use. The firing is also now illegal under state law, which forbids discharging or discriminalizing against an employee for medical cannabis use. And in its decision, the grievance panel upheld the firing by citing the entirety of the city's substance abuse policy, which at the time of Beltane's firing forbid the use of medical marijuana. The policy cited federal drug laws and the possibility of losing federal grant money as reasons for not allowing the practice. Beltane said the grievance panel ultimately did not review whether the policy itself was legal, but rather whether it was correctly used in the firing. And in a quote, he says, "They were like, we're not here to interpret state law," Beltane said. And Beltane said his next steps include appealing the decision in circuit court and filing a civil suit against the city. And Beltane said he began using medical marijuana off the clock to help relieve anxiety, depression, and other symptoms. And in 2022, in accordance with city policy, he told the Human Resources Department he had received a medical marijuana card from a doctor, and he was later fired in 2023 after disclosing his medical marijuana usage during a yearly physical. And that is a story we originally covered here on High at 9 News when it happened. Beltane said the city changed its policy to forbid medical marijuana after it learned about his usage, and in response to the city said the policy was effectively changed in mid-2022 despite not being changed in writing until several months later. And finally, the city again reversed its policy in 2024, asking medical marijuana users to notify Human Resources, and the move coincided with Governor Glenn Youngkin's signing a law closing a loophole that left public sector employees out of medical marijuana job protections. And a city representative denied to comment on the grievance board's decision, you guys. Man, I feel bad for this guy, Mr. Beltane. I think he should get his job back, but the grievance panel disagrees, and I can't wait to hear what you guys disagree about this. Crickets, huh?
I mean, typically, unfortunately, this is usually where the buck starts. He's going to have to file some kind of lawsuit, and I'm not sure exactly what way he's going to go about this, but this is pretty shitty. Like, this is pretty bad. Firefighters deal with a lot of really awful things. I have some very good friends that are both wilderness and regular firefighters, and they see a lot of horrible things that humans shouldn't have to see in their day-to-day job, right? They're willing to do that and make those sacrifices that are also really fucking tough on their bodies. So the fact that a firefighter can't go home with a sore back from climbing ladders and carrying fucking people out of buildings and hiking up cliffs to save people and smoke a joint about it is absolutely disgusting.
I totally agree.
I think we've had a string of stories today that just highlight how bad the stigma still really is. There's a section of society in America and probably in most of Western civilization and maybe the whole world that thinks like if you smoke some weed, you go nuts and you do the most insane things. Down to stories like this. Why can't a firefighter inform his bosses that he's using medical cannabis legally and not get fired? Like, what is he being fired for? You see what
it's worse. It's worse than that. It's worse than that. This gentleman probably risked his safety to be a net positive to society. I mean, what more noble professions are there than teachers, nurses, and firefighters? I mean, they get a fast track to heaven if they're not terrible people. Like, this is, we want to support these people. These people don't do it for the money. They're pulling cats out of trees and helping old ladies with broken pelvises get onto stretchers. I mean, this is, firefighters, like, that's a noble category. This gentleman self-reported. He told the truth. Okay? He didn't get caught. He didn't pee dirty, pee hot. He told the truth to HR. He kept it real and then was fired for telling the truth. And so this limp dick decision was technically correct because the policy hadn't been changed at the time of his firing. But this is one of those things where we talk about the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law. The spirit of the law is they're penalizing somebody for being honest and truthful and open with HR.
It's that saying.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's that saying,
if
Yarrow.
this person's crazy enough to want to jump into a burning building to save your mother, you keep them on the job.
It's that saying, Yarrow. No good deed goes unpunished.
100%.
And Troy Lawrence in the chat, he says, saving lives ain't enough to relieve your mental stress with ganja. What the hell?
I mean,
that's exactly where I was going.
Yep, exactly.
That's where I was going, Yarrow, is exactly where you went. I mean, you're talking about a firefighter who is literally one of the most noble professions, who serves people, like literally serves people in the best way. And according to the story, he informed his seniors and his bosses, and then after the fact, they changed the rule and then fired him.
And if you want to fuck him, there are nicer ways to fuck him. Like, give him a desk job. Make him be the firefighter that goes around with the Dalmatian to schools and doesn't get in on the action of, like, saving a 4-story building. Like, you could do things within that system that are short of termination if you wanted to penalize the guy, or you could put him on some sort of probationary blah, 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 or you can make him take 27 classes. I mean, the idea that that's a fireable offense, for me, it's like, okay, if you wanted to create a consequence because the system had a construct that didn't allow this to be sanctioned activity, there are probably a lot of things you could do besides stripping this person of their career. It's not like firefighting skills are going to translate and you can go get a job at Best Buy.
That just doesn't make any sense. I mean, the stigma, again, is clearly so high. I don't understand what they think is going to happen. Like, this guy smoked weed and he's going to become a danger to society and not be able to function as a firefighter.
Yeah. What
do you believe about this plant and about using it? It's just like, where do these people even get this? They're still, it's like Harry Anslinger is still alive today. It's crazy.
What's the message this sends to the rest of that fire department about being honest with HR about any issue?
Yeah.
What's the corporate culture that you create in that brotherhood and sisterhood when you penalize somebody at the worst possible way for being truthful?
Yep.
You tell them to not be. That's what it's creating a culture of hiding and lying, and I bet you the majority of them use medical cannabis.
I want the person who decided to fire him to get fired.
Yeah, that would be great.
Oh, man, that would be awesome. And speaking of that, we are going to roll. Thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry. Huge thank you to Aim High Hemp Distribution, Tested, and Catalyst for helping us keep the lights on over here. And thank you to our correspondents for being absolutely amazing. Thank you to Cannabis Sativa L for giving us a reason to do this every day. And thank you to Cloud Media partners Elias and Kai out there in the metaverse somewhere. And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. And thank you, Governor Abbott, for doing the right thing, because we are America's #1 daily cannabis news show.